What's up, everybody? Welcome in to our AT&T 5G virtual studios. This is The Call Up. I am Jillian Sakovitz. That is my lovely co-host, Susanna Collins. Today we have a conversation that was so important, so eye-opening, and in many ways, shocking. Our guest, 15-year veteran goalkeeper Chris Seitz, opened up in early May about how at DC United under then head coach Hernan Losada, he went into a really dark place. On May 10th, Chris Seitz tweeted, quote, "A thread about when fitness and daily life in pro sports was taken too far and how it can affect a pro's mental health." He goes on to describe a situation that was really not good for him, where he even said, "I was damn near starving myself." Chris Seitz opens up with us today about how, in wanting to continue a professional career, still be the best, be that starting goalkeeper, he became obsessed with his weight, fitness, was working out nonstop. His thoughts even went as far to, should I be drinking water? Susan, it took his wife and a nutritionist who eventually pointed out that this had gone too far. And it was good to see that he's seemingly on the other side of it and has realized what a bad space that was. And while so much was hard about this conversation, what I loved about it was he was able to pinpoint and point out how this doesn't happen to other athletes that are trying for that starting position, that are on one-year contracts, and how we can help not let things like this happen.
Yeah. He said one of the things that stuck out to me, Jill, so many things about this conversation, but he said athletes are vulnerable. And that is not something that we think about. That is not a word that we typically use when we talk about athletes. We see them as sort of these unstoppable forces, have, everything going for them. But truly, they are vulnerable. And to your point, the guys who are on a one-year contract or just, trying to make that next step, get to that next level. And what Chris shed light on and the situation that he unfortunately had to go through is going to help so many people. And we're just so grateful for his time, for his willingness to open up and share this with us and all of you guys. This is a really, really important conversation. So take a listen. Time now for our AT&T 5G call to the field. We are so happy to have on a guy with a 15-year professional career under his belt, a goalkeeper who featured for RSL, Philadelphia, FC Dallas, where he won the Supporters Shield and the U.S. Open Cup, the Houston Dynamo, and DC United before announcing his retirement from the game this past January. One of the nicest guys in soccer, Chris Seitz. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This is very, very exciting. We've known each other for a few years. We did a BTW back in the day. You're a BTW alum. So I feel like I know, exactly. Not many people can put that feather in their cap.
Can we just give him credit too, for those that are watching? Arguably one of the most beautiful, well done backgrounds we've ever had from a player.
I know.
And branded in Soccer for All. Like, Chris Seitz, you are a dream. Thank you.
Well, my wife's an interior designer, so if the room wasn't set up right, she would absolutely crush me.
The books, the little candle. I mean, it's like out of Good Morning America. I love it.
It really is. It looks staged.
Usually we have a chin and a closet.
Or
we try to keep our kids out of this room as much as possible. I got 5 of them, so as long as they're not in here messing it up, we're in good shape.
Amazing. All right. Well, Chris, let's get right into it. Okay. A few weeks ago, you posted this Twitter thread where you revealed some of the extreme fitness and health regimens that you experienced as a player at DC United and the devastating effects that had on your mental health and your mental well-being. This was like super raw. It was transparent and honestly, like really pretty shocking to read it. You kind of spoke about being just in a really dark place. That all started with what you thought was this sort of like innocuous, innocent photo that you posted on Mother's Day celebrating your beautiful wife. For those that aren't familiar with what happened, Chris, would you be willing to just kind of share that experience, what you revealed in the Twitter thread? If you could just kind of go through that with us.
Yeah, so it actually all started because of Mother's Day. Like Facebook has the little like what happened on this day in years past thing, and I clicked on the memories, and it was that picture at the picnic with it was my wife and our kids sitting down eating at a park, and it just brought back memories of kind of what that picture, I guess, in a lot of senses has done to not just me, but to also kind of what it represented. And so for me, I sat down on my couch when the kids were gone, and I kind of just started on a thread. And I've done a couple threads in the past, but I've never done one with like true intent like that. And it got kind of mixed up a little bit here and there. So the message was kind of misplaced in a couple of different places. But basically, we had a brand new coach come in this past year or the year prior to DC United. And he had this vision for the club and the vision for the players and the vision for the team that was really authentic to him and something that he really wanted to push. And for him, he had his mindset on how he wanted to go about it. And as a lot of coaches do, and that's kind of his philosophy. He's a high pressure player, or he was a high pressure player, and he wanted to have a high pressure team. And so in his standpoint, you have to be truly fit in order to do that. And now we were coming off of a long off season with COVID. And so in his opinion, a lot of players came in unfit. He was talking about it in the press. He was talking about it and a lot of different opportunities that he had. And to his point, the guys were working really hard. We were doing everything that he asked of us in preseason. And he had meetings and conversations with all of us about kind of what his expectations were for us. At that point, I'm obviously a really big guy. I have been since high school. That's kind of just who I am. And for me, it's nothing new to have a coach ask me to drop some weight or to change my physique a little bit. And it's something that I've always taken as a challenge and something that I really wanted to do. Not only because it was my 15th year and I'm trying to stay on the boat as long as possible, but also because I like challenges and I like challenging myself in new ways. And so I started to do everything that he asked of me. He asked me to come in early. I was one of 4 players, I think, at the time that had to come in early before we ate and do a workout, and then go have breakfast and then be with the team, do different stuff, and then have our own weight session afterwards and trying to just like a transformation period. And I was all for it. And it was something that I was seeing progress with and success with throughout the first couple of months. And it got to the point to where I was getting obsessed with it. I was weighing myself in every morning, weighing myself out every night, weighing myself midday to see where I was at. And in order to continue to lose, I started to go down this cycle where I started to not hydrate properly. I started to skip meals or really inadequately eat and provide for myself the nutrients that I needed to be successful on the field. And a lot of it was obviously due to peer pressure, right? So we would have meetings after our body scans that we would go do with the DEXA body scans, and he would put up the slide of everyone's weight and a big giant red arrow of down or up in terms of where they were. And he wouldn't talk for like 2 minutes and just let everyone bring in all the information. And it got everyone sweating, right? It got everyone like, oh, geez, this is awkward. This is awful. This is something that for me was super uncomfortable. And it also provided a platform for me to go deeper down into the hole of trying to get on the direction that he wanted me at. By this time I was already down 20 pounds. And so it was like, okay, like what else can I do? Where else can I lose? How else can I lose? I'm lifting 4 days a week trying to play, right? So I was playing at this point. I was starting for the team, and it was one of those things where I obviously was starting to see a decline in my performance solely based off of, not solely based, but a lot based off of how I was feeling. I was constantly drained, constantly tired, but unable to sleep. It was affecting my home life. It was affecting me in a lot of different ways. And it was Mother's Day, so not even a third of the way through the season, and I posted a photo of my wife, one of like 8 photos, by the way. It wasn't even like it might have been the front photo, but it was one of like 8 photos. And he's met my kids. He knows of my kids' ages, and in one of the pictures, my daughter's not even old enough to like walk yet, so he knows that it can't be a relatively new photo, right? And so it was actually from 2 years prior, and I got not called in, but I came in early for my run the next morning, and our strength coach pulled me to the side and said that he had a conversation with the coaching staff, and they weren't happy with the picture that I posted of the picnic, because there was chips even though most of them were Sun Chips. There was a couple sodas, but a lot of waters on the table, and sandwiches. And it was just like a super simple photo that kind of showed my wife with all of our kids. And I thought it was a great photo for us to have and to put on there. And he just told me, he's like, he's not happy with it. It's showing your eating habits. It's showing this, it's showing that. And I was like, hold on, that photo is 2 years old. That was under a whole different coaching group. It was under a whole different mindset of how the locker room was. If you need to see what I've been doing on a daily basis, I'm happy to explain it to you. You've seen my numbers drop. You've seen everything and how I've gone about doing it. You basically micromanage what I eat anyways at this point. Like, calm down, basically. And this is a week after I had lost the job, or 2 weeks after I had lost the job, I think, to John at that point. And they had gone a different direction. So for me, I was already like, self-confidence was already dropping. And I was obviously stressing about all that entails with losing your starting position, but also the downward spiral of what I was going through mentally. And that kind of was just like the final piece. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here, but I was basically like, what is going on? Like, this is insane. And I was depressed. I was anxious. I was not sleeping. I was snappy. I was all the things that you hear about that you go through. But when you're in it, it's like tunnel vision. There's nothing else really on your mind or that you're thinking about. And so for me, I was getting frustrated a lot at home. And my wife was like, Chris, what are you doing? Like, is this worth it? Like, what you're doing right now, is it worth it to you? Are you seeing opportunities that you wouldn't have seen otherwise with this? Are you getting the recognition by continuing to do it? And the answers were no, right? Like, I was continued to tell myself that I needed to lose more because that's what the screenshot was showing. That's what we were being told in the locker room, and that's what I was being told on a daily basis. And so for me, it was a conversation with my wife where she was just like, it's like, you're not who you used to be. You've changed, and you've changed personally. You've changed at home. You've changed in a lot of different ways. And it comes down to me, right? Like, that's the spiral and the way that I went. And then you listen to a story from Julian, or you listen to a story from someone else where it actually made them a better soccer player. And Julian looked at it as an opportunity for him to get better, and it helped him in a lot of ways. And I'm sure that's the case for a lot of the guys, but I know for a fact, me and at least one or two other people that have reached out to me since then, just on DC alone, I've had guys reach out for me from other clubs that said this really hits home. And so it's not a single case scenario, right? And so for me, it was important to get it on paper and get it kind of out there. The timing was coincidental. I mean, he had just lost the job probably 3 weeks prior, but it was also something that I probably would have done even if he was in the job, just explaining my battle, not just with him personally, because I've had the conversations with him. I've told him once I kind of talked to the nutritionist, and she pushed me away from the direction I was going and told me that I needed to eat a lot more, but try and build muscle rather than lose fat. And that was how I was going to be able to get my body fat at the percentage that he wanted. And all those conversations I had with him, and I had them personally with him. And I mean, obviously they didn't go as well as one would hope, but I was honest with him, and I was vulnerable with him, and I told him exactly where I was. And that's kind of how we left it. And so for me, it was an easy situation for me to move on from, solely from the standpoint of I can have my wife and my family and be proud of who I am, or I can continue going down that path. So for me, it was really clear. And my wife and this nutritionist basically gave me a wake-up call to truly push me into a different direction. And I'm obviously thankful for that.
Chris, so much of what you describe, women, especially women working TV, the first thing that comes to our mind is, oh, wow, like Chris Seitz was dealing with an eating disorder of types. Now, how you categorize that is, infinite in every way like that. But how much of it, you said other players reached out to you, obviously male athletes, how much of that was surprising even to you that this happens to men too? And not men that are on camera per se, but men that are in the professional sports space. That's really, I've been in it for over a decade, and that's not a thing I think of, eating disorders and professional athletes that are men. How much of that was even a surprise to you now as messages have rolled in?
So I think some of the guys I knew personally last year that were struggling with it, right? And so I knew of guys that were within similar situations.
Within DC, you knew of?
Within DC. Just guys that were constantly more worried about how much weight they lost in a training session than they were with how the training session went. Or guys that were more worried about what they needed to do for the next body fat test than they were about eating properly and being ready for the game on Saturday. And so that effect isn't unique to just DC. I would say that a lot of, as we get more and more to analytics and we get more and more into stats, that happens to players as well. And so when you look at expected goals, or you look at goals scored or goals against and all this stuff, like teams are taking it, micromanaging that even to a farther level of individual players. And they're kind of going in a category of one size fits all, rather than in a category of what is the best possible weight for this person to play at, for them personally, not for A, goalkeepers or B, midfielders. And so I think a lot of guys, I mean, as professional athletes, we're perfectionists. And if someone's telling us we need to do something, we have to try and get to that level, because A, they have power over us in terms of a leadership position, but also because they're the ones that are making a decision on your contract in the following year or two. And so you need to do everything you can to show that you're a team player, to show that you believe in their vision. And a lot of that can be good, but some of it can be really, really bad. And I kind of went down in that second category.
Chris, a 15-year professional career. You've been around the game and the league for so long. I'm just curious, like, this sort of extreme level. I know you kind of spoke about how, the way that people look at the game and it's more analytical and all of these factors. Have you ever seen anything kind of similar, as drastic as this in your career previously? Because I'm sure you're working with trainers and nutritionists all the time as a professional athlete. Was there ever, I'm trying to just kind of gauge the scale of like how extreme this was.
I would say that I've had conversations personally with different teams in terms of, like, I'll have a one-on-one with a coach where he's like, listen, like, if we can drop 5 in the preseason, like, we're going to be in a lot better shape than you currently are at right now. Mm-hmm. And those are okay. I think the minute that they start going to in-season performance and trying to have you continually do things throughout the regular season, especially if you're performing and playing, right? And trying to perform and play, like, if you're at a calorie deficit trying to play in a big game on a Saturday, like, you're not going to be at your peak. And that's just fact. So for me, there's a lot that I've had conversations with different clubs that I've played for. I mean, it even came down to college. Like, I was a big boy in college as well. So that was basically my first, what we called fat camp, where I would be running around the outside of the field after training. And then basically almost all teams after that, I've had conversations with either athletic trainers or the strength coaches about ways that I can drop weight and get into the eyes of coaches in the way that they want me to be looking, but not to the degree at all of where I was at this past year, and nothing to where it became an obsession like it did with DC, and where I went down a personal kind of self-induced kind of just eating disorder, or however you want to look at it, just a really dark, depressive state.
Chris, so many messages when you took the time to post this. It was so moving to see all of the messages just from the outside that rolled in. I'm sure personal messages that weren't just posted to your Twitter thread. Who reached out to you, or was there a certain message where you said, wow, dealing with what sounds nightmarish, and then posting about it, wow, that was all worth it?
So I actually had a really beneficial conversation with Lucy, the technical director at DC. And first off, she was in shock that something like that happened under her watch, but also she was asking for, like, tail signs and opportunities that she could have possibly from going and doing more. And for her, she felt obviously guilty in a lot of different ways, but I had an open and honest conversation with her about kind of the power struggle between players and staff and technical staff, and players not being in a position to be able to speak up when there's someone that's trying to change the culture of the locker room and do different things if it's going awry, right? And I was a leader of the locker room. I was someone obviously with a lot of experience within the league, but also someone that a lot of the players respected. And for me, I told her, I was like, listen, like, there were signs there. And I think the signs got mixed up in just kind of the change of guard from old DC to new DC. But, like, there's a lot of people that quit over kind of the structure and the unhealthiness that players were going through within it. We had athletic trainers that kind of quit halfway through the year. They fired the nutritionist the coach fired the nutritionist at one point. And so there was like signs there, right, that it had happened, but they also were mixed up with the just kind of changing of the guard and the coach bringing in his staff and his people into the organization. So I told her it's tough, but at the same time, like, keep your ear to the ground and have conversations with players on an individual basis to kind of get the feel of a locker room and what guys are going through, because it kind of, someone might be able to step up and have a conversation with her that they wouldn't be able to have in front of Hernan or whoever the coach is that's going and putting the players through it.
It's
and
so
just for
important.
our listeners, I just want them to know Lucy Rushton, general manager at DC United.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's really, really, I mean, it's just such an important conversation. And obviously it's, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. This couldn't be more pertinent than it is right now as we continue to try to elevate these conversations. And Chris, you said something that really like kind of resonated with me. You said like, while you were in this and while you were sort of, you were obsessing over your weight and, weighing yourself at all hours of the day, you had this tunnel vision, right? And you needed like your wife and your family and people to kind of pull you out of this, to sort of take a step back, get some perspective of like, hold on, time out. This isn't right. This is really, really impacting me in a negative way. What was it like when you finally confronted it, realizing that you had a problem? And how did you, how have you been able to kind of start that healing process? What was that like?
Well, it doesn't help that I retired and gained like 15, 20 pounds afterwards. So no, I think for me, like, it got to the point to where like I knew if I didn't drink water the night before bed that I would lose at least a half a pound to a pound and a half. And I knew like how I could manipulate my body to be under or at the same weight as the day prior for weigh-ins, because we were weighing in every day. Every day that we came into the locker room, we got down into our sliders and weighed in every day with an intern. And so it got to the point to where I knew exactly how much I had to do it. Once I kind of just stopped caring, and I had the conversation with the nutritionist who was like, listen, you're not going to ever get to their goals. The best way you can do this is a healthy way, and that's adding protein to your diet, doubling up on all the protein that you're eating, but also like the nutrients that you're getting from the food are going to help you feel better and perform better. And she's like, do you care more about your performance or about meeting their goals? And the obvious answer is I care about how I play. And that's obviously what's most important to me. So once that conversation happened and she was like, listen, like, forget their goals, worry about being healthy, worry about the way in which you're being healthy. And if you want to be able to continue to lose body fat, you're only going to be able to do that by building muscle. She's like, you're at the point now where you're eating away muscle, and you need to be able to gain that back in order to do it. And so she really opened my eyes to just like the improbable situation that I was in. And it was kind of like Groundhog's Day for me, where every day was exactly the same. I was constantly worried about everything outside of soccer and not soccer itself, but the intangibles that would be affecting me on a daily basis with the coaching staff. And so I think those conversations were really, really helpful to me. And when I talked to Lucy the other day, I told her how important the conversation with the nutritionist was and how important she was to me, realizing that I was having a problem and that I was in the midst of an eating disorder or some sort of state that I was in that wouldn't allow me to be the best that I could possibly be. And all that they care about, the technical staff, is how you perform on the weekend, not how much weight you lost in the last month or where you're at. And so it's a big picture for them. And she got it. She understood exactly what I was talking about and kind of how I felt. And obviously there's a lot there, but at the end of the day, all I cared about was how I played after that. And if I had a big meal the night before and I weighed in over what I was supposed to be at, like, I was willing to have that conversation with Hernan, because I was like, listen, I don't really care anymore. I'm at the point where I care about what I'm doing on the week and not being hurt and not being injured. And that to me was the most important thing. And I didn't want to spend my last months as a professional soccer player as someone in the treatment room. I wanted to be someone out there playing and competing with my friends and my teammates. And that's kind of where I became me personally took it.
Yeah.
Chris, you mentioned your wife when we started this, your wife, Katie, 5 adorable kids. How have they seen a difference in you now? And, in talking to you, you seem great. And I know you've got a couple new things in the mix, in retirement life. But how are you and how is everything at home? I don't know if using the term on the other side of this is correct. Yeah. You tell us.
Yeah, no, I think things are all right. I mean, I don't have a job currently, so I'm truly enjoying retirement.
You've had a job for a really long time.
5 months is all right to be out, but no, it's been an accumulation probably for my wife because she works from home, right? Like her office is here, and for her, like me being home pestering her all the time is probably annoying. So she's probably ready for me to be back to work, but I've been able to help my oldest daughter's soccer team. So 4 of my 5 kids play. So our Saturdays are super busy, but I help
with my oldest. And you coach one of them?
Yeah, I coach. I'm assistant coach for one of them. I wasn't sure if I was going to be getting a job pretty quickly after playing, so I didn't want to commit to like a head coaching position, but I make every practice. I'm at all my kids' games. I actually get to play in the teacher staff game against their rival in 2 weeks. And so I'm playing in a basketball game.
Oh, you're going to crush.
I'm playing in a basketball game in 2 weeks for my daughter's school.
Nice.
So like I'm able to do all these things that I constantly miss. And I think for me, I wanted to be done playing where I could be present in my kid's life and be home for family dinners and not miss their soccer games anymore. And for me, it was a perfect time. I hit the 15-year mark. So if the league ever decides to give payments to players or something in those lines of, I'm blanking on the word right now, but yeah, if there's ever love for guys that had 15 years in the league, like I hit that milestone. And for me personally, that was a big one. I think also I'm able to look at it and enjoy Saturdays and enjoy Friday nights that I never was able to do before. And that's super nice between family dinners, movie nights, being able to take my wife out on a date Friday night and have a couple of drinks or just relax and not worry about what Saturday brings in terms of sports is really nice for me. After being in the league for so long, it's kind of been a breath of fresh air in terms of our family and what we've been able to do.
Chris, it's really remarkable. Your journey and your story, and you seem to be in a really, really good headspace right now, which just makes me so very happy. I said at the top of the show, you're one of the nicest guys that I've ever worked with in Major League Soccer, and we're just, we're so thankful that you felt comfortable enough to share this story, because I think it's really going to help so many people, as you mentioned, that, you were not the only one that was kind of dealing with this. As we continue to try to have these conversations and shed some light on these situations for you, what do you hope? What is your hope moving forward in terms of like the messaging that you have brought awareness to? Where can we help? Where can we get better in delivering this message?
Yeah, I think like a lot of it goes into a bigger picture for professional athletes. Like we get so tunnel visioned on our next contract, our next play, our next whatever, and realizing that if you do take care of yourself in the right ways and you do take care of yourself in ways that are healthy, but also going to benefit you as a professional, you're going to be able to do it for a lot longer. And I think my 15-year career is thanks to the athletic trainers and the strength staff that were willing to do things the right way for me and put me in a position to be successful and healthy on a daily basis and to continue to perform not only on the field, but in training sessions on a daily basis. And for me, the story it's more about how I was able to get to 15 years before I started to run into a problem than it is the fact that I had a problem in my last year. And I look back at my time in the league as some of the best memories I'll have between all the clubs that I've played for and the friends that I've made and all that. So for me, I think it's a story of athletes are vulnerable. Athletes are at a point where any criticism from people of power within the organization can affect them, especially guys that are on short-term contracts. And that's a conversation that I had with Lucy as well. It's just the fact that a majority of the athletes or fringe players on the roster are on short-term contracts, and they're willing to do anything to get to that next one. And I think that for me was kind of a big part of it, is the fact that I'm at a late stage of my career. I'm at a part where I'm trying to stay aboard the ship of any team. And the fact that I was was vulnerable to something like that, and I took it down a path that it shouldn't have gone. And for me, that's kind of how susceptible I was, but also I'm probably not unique in that situation. I think there's others out there that are willing to go and do things differently in order to continue to stay on a roster. So for me, that's kind of how I look at it. And I want players to know that doing it the right way and doing it healthy and working with your nutritionist, working with your strength coaches and doing it the right way is going to be the only way forward. And the best way for clubs to do it, to help players in these situations, is to make sure that they have that staff on board. Just the two last teams I played for, the first two teams that had a nutritionist full-time at the time. And so the fact that not even every club has a nutritionist in there on a daily basis, that's not an intern, but actually a professional. So not a college student that's looking to get credit, but someone that's actually a hired position that has the voice and has the respect and the trust of the players, I think is something that a lot of clubs can look into and really find benefits from, because athletes are always looking for an edge, and they'll talk to nutritionists and find ways to better themselves, not just for the club, but for themselves personally. And so I think it's a big opportunity for clubs to invest in unique ways to help players in their journeys.
Well, Chris Seitz, we really can't, I know Susanna said it, but we really can't thank you enough for opening up, talking to us, but more than anything, educating us and educating our listeners. It's really, you think you guys are so confident and that you have it all and that you have the best jobs in the world, probably similar to what people think of Susanna and I. We do have the best jobs in the world, but a lot of insecurities and things can breed. And I just thank you so much for opening up to us the way that you did. And I know it's going to help other people. So we appreciate that. And please keep us posted. We love that you're loving your Saturdays, but keep us posted on what else is going on with Chris Seitz. Thank you so very much.
Wow. Again, just a massive, massive thank you to Chris Seitz for sharing everything that he did, for opening up about his situation, for getting this conversation out there. Because again, as we said, this is going to help a lot of people. It's something that we don't think about, we don't think about, we hear about, that sort of like toxic relationship with food or eating disorders. Typically it's, a women's issue but these are male athletes that are also being confronted with this. And I think it's probably happening more often than we think. And Chris Seitz is, just the bravery and just willingness is so remarkable, and
the
we're
class,
super grateful. Yeah,
and the class that he showed of saying this was this way of doing it.
Yeah,
but this is how it affected me, and it affected him in a way that really is not okay. And I think in the world we live in of Instagram filters, all the crap. Right? Yeah. That's the obvious. But then also, right now with all of the ways that coaches can measure athletes, physically, but also in video and measuring whose stats come out like this. I think that there's a lot that Chris Seitz pointed out, and there's a lot now that needs to be discussed too, of like, where do you draw the line
100%.
Of just, hey, like maybe the way like an old school coach looks at it of like, hit that guy on the field. And now there's so much to break down. Where do we draw the line of what we break down? And at the end of the day, like Chris Seitz said, he just wants his play to be what's broken down.
And that the irony to me, Jill, is that, so much of what he was going through and this like just insane regimen and the measures that he was taking to get himself to be, quote, supposedly, like the best shape of his life was actually counterproductive. It was harming his fitness, like that. And there's that fine line, to your point. And so once again, just a huge thank you to him. This was super eye-opening, and I hope everybody took something away from this. And it's something that we should probably all be more aware of and be thinking about.
Well
more,
said.
so.
Even me as a reporter, it took a minute for me to look back in myself. I can think of being back at Nick's training camp years ago, and Ray Felton came in out of shape, right? And so much was talked about his physique. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? A line was probably crossed there of quote, being out of shape. And then still that just because he's a guy or just because he's a NBA player, just because he has millions of dollars doesn't mean that it's okay to body shame or make jokes about people, which I feel like in the New York press at the time, people people were. So yeah, even like for myself, I resonated with some things that he said. And then I also thought, okay, here's as a reporter and a journalist where we can be better.
100%. And on that note, we talked about it. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So this conversation was super, super relevant that we just had. And in that vein, I just want to shed some light on a really cool organization. It's called This Is My Brave. It uses storytelling to save lives. So you can access hundreds of stories on the website, This Is My Brave. You can submit your own stories to connect to a community that's dedicated to bringing sort of these painful, dark stories about mental illness and addiction to light, which then fosters this community so that you know that you're not alone. You know that you're not the only one that's having these struggles, that's having to face this. And I just think it's really, really cool. So check that out if you're interested.
Thank you, Suze. That's so important to share that. Thank you for finding that. And I'm excited to check it out. Also, for our listeners, the international window kicks off with the U.S. men's national team. They are back in action on Wednesday night with a friendly against Morocco at 7:30 Eastern time. That game is going to be in Cincinnati. You can catch it on ESPN2. I'll be on the call alongside Taylor Twellman and John Champion. It'll also be on Unimas and 2DNA. So something to look forward to for sure.
Yeah. Happy international break, everybody. Be good to one another. Be kind. Please. And thank you, as always, for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
What's up, everybody? It is Susanna Collins and Jillian Sakovits, co-hosts of The Call Up. And if you want more Call Up action, hit like and subscribe right here on YouTube, right there.
And also make sure that you download every episode of The Call Up every single Tuesday at 5 o'clock Eastern time or anywhere that you get your podcasts. And while you're here, why not check out some of these other videos as well?